Is there a sense in the US at the moment of the riots that we saw over the past 2 weeks reigniting and happening again at the same level?
I wouldn't say reigniting and happening at the same level necessarily. I think that the protests that we saw after the death of George Floyd never really stopped. They've been going on continuously since that happened. Initially, you saw a wave of chaos within Minneapolis, but then the protests grew larger. You saw more uniformly peaceful protests happen in that city and across the country. And so I think that the protests against what happened to Rayshard Brooks are just going to look like a continuation of what we've already been seeing these past few weeks, where people take to the streets in commemoration of not just any of these particular incidents, but a wave of police violence, a wave of police misconduct that people are angry about that has been happening over the past several years in this country.
So from what you've been able to gather, is there a sense that this time there might be some kind of change that can be achieved out of it?
Well, over the past few years, we have seen different reforms enacted, proposed at different levels, at the state and local level, at the federal level. So there's been an ongoing criminal justice conversation spurred by some of these incidents for some time now. And in response to the death of George Floyd, you see people talking about adopting a national use of force standard. You see more and more talk about getting abusive cops off the beat, diversifying police forces. So, the Floyd situation, I think, has created new energy for reform conversations that were already going on. I think the one change now is that you also have a movement more broadly than just speaking about reforms. You have a movement that is interested in fundamentally transforming or reworking law enforcement in conception in this country. And that seems like a new development.
Well, and it's a movement that's not just in your country, but that movement has spread to the United Kingdom. It's even spread to Australia as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that it's still early days. I mean, this is not a policy conversation most Americans are used to. I can't really speak to what's happening in other countries. But, for many, many years, there have been people at the local level trying to develop alternatives to policing, whether that means having nonviolent interveners in violent situations, trained to handle certain things that police are expected to do now. Sometimes that means making sure that communities have resources to deal with mental health issues that can be responded to negatively if the police are involved and aren't trained in dealing with mental health situations. So a lot of different ideas in that bucket that people can explore. They're being talked about now. But whether that conversation develops into a something that lasts beyond the next couple of weeks and is carried into the political future, I think remains to be seen.
Just finally on the election campaign or the Joe Biden's selection of his running mate, Osita, has there been any new developments on that?
Not really. I mean, we've heard that Biden is going to leans towards announcing in August, I think, whose pick is going to be. The main thing that is impacted by the George Floyd protests is that several of the candidates that Biden is apparently considering, people like Val Demings, a congressman from Florida, people like Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, these are people with either direct or sort of secondary ties to law enforcement in some of these controversies. And we have this situation in Atlanta now that makes Bottoms an unlikely pick. So people are kind of gravitating towards Kamala Harris as a likelier option. She does have her own connections to the criminal justice world. She's a prosecutor. She's an attorney general. But there are ways in which during the campaign and now she tried to reframe that record, make it seem like something that informed her about the issues Americans are facing within their policing system. And so because she's experienced, because they're looking for a woman of color on the ticket, she seems to be the most balanced pick that a lot of people are saying. It seems likely Biden is going to choose.